You better be careful now.
We don't want to share accounts.
You better be careful because you listen.
We're not joining
Listen,
in that
you
way.
in a lot of people's business right now. You better be
I
careful.
know, but I'm gonna tell them anyway.
You right, and you might get canceled. So be okay with being canceled.
I'm okay with it.
We still do. We still do. We still do.
We still do after all this time at the altar. I alter my mind and vow to God I love you till he make his return. The rain should be the least of your concern. Under God's umbrella, I promise to provide and preserve his word and to serve your mind and spirit. Let me drive the boat. I promise I'ma steer it. The devil cannot get near it. You'll notice soon as you hear it. You need me, I need you. Even after the altar, we still do.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of
You need me, I need you. Even after the altar, we still do.
You have to be serious.
Bruh, that's that gas, bruh. Shout out to Retro. Shout out to Retro. Okay, but anyways.
No, that is not how we're starting this episode. I know you're kidding me.
No, what would you listen, bruh? We here.
Okay.
We here. Anyways, what's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of We Still Do. We're your host. I'm Jermaine.
I'm Lena.
And whether you're single, you just got married, or you've been in it for a minute, We Still Do is for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
We believe in marriages thriving after the altar. So that's pretty much what you can find here. Biblical principles, our story, other stories. We'll be doing interviews. So stick around, like, subscribe, please, so you don't miss a notification. We will be uploading weekly episodes on Thursdays.
Every week. Okay. So before we get started, she already getting on me for coming in too playful. So let's tone it down a bit.
You can play.
How you doing?
I am okay now.
Okay.
Today was a bit much emotionally. Our little one had to be put down.
Oh,
wow,
yeah.
that sounds like an animal. She had to be put to sleep to have dentist work done. And so
yeah, she got a lip tie.
She had a lip tie and they had to cut it. And so my nerves were a little shot. I was emotional. I don't know why, but after she woke up, I'm just like bawling. Like, I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm coming up out of that.
Okay. Yeah. You even came home crying. You know, I'm holding her, and you just
and you didn't even hold me.
Feeling the weight of it. She had the surgery. I'm sorry.
But I gave her to you.
You did, and I was holding her literally. So yeah.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. I think this morning went great. Got up when I wanted to. And I got some things done, so I feel good. Good. Okay, so introduce our topic today, because you excited about this one.
Just a hot topic. No, I've heard a lot of couples say, especially if they've been dating for a long time, like, what's the point of getting married? It's just a piece of paper. It's just a contract. And I feel like we have so watered down what marriage actually is and what it represents. And so today we're going to be talking on the topic of contract versus covenant, because marriage is a covenant, if you didn't know. And so we're going to dive deep into that.
Okay. But marriage also has a contract element too.
It does. It has both.
Did you know?
But it's not solely a contract.
Did you know that there are other cultures that don't go get the paper?
The marriage license?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there are some cultures.
Name one.
Stop.
Put you on the spot.
You did, and I wasn't ready for it. I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
My husband has a lot of random knowledge that he just drops like randomly. So I was just curious if you actually knew one.
I do, but I want to be sure. So I'm not going to give it on air and somebody comment, you're lying.
You're wrong.
You're fake.
False prophet.
You're phony. Yeah, I'm gonna avoid all that. So
yeah, let's not.
So I'll give
on
it
our
to you
second episode. We'll ease into it.
Okay, so do you want to just kind of kick us off? Just help, because this is something that you're very passionate about. Even talking off air with you, you were just going into your points and you was just doing your little head stuff as if like you talking to somebody like for real.
I was.
Other than me.
You are a real person.
Not me. So So just kind of kick us off, like, just why? Why do we need to talk about covenant with people?
I feel like we need to talk about it. One, you mentioned this in our last episode. If you haven't watched it, go back and subscribe and watch that one too. But where you basically were saying when you don't know the intended purpose for something, then you'll misuse it or you won't understand the benefit of what it truly means and operate within that. And so, just like a contract, when I think of a contract, I'm a real estate agent, I sell homes. So, when we're doing contracts, we're considering obviously the buyer or the seller, and it's a mutual agreement between both parties. But there are terms, there are deadlines, there are dates, how long this contract is. And so, I feel like a lot of marriages kind of take on that mindset and that perspective, especially being that when you say I do right now, statistically, only 50% actually make it. And so that just led me to, okay, do we really understand the weight of the covenant and what we're saying I do too when we make those vows? Like
Yeah.
there's a gap there between the contract, as you said, it have both aspects, the contract, the covenant, and then there I feel like there's this gray area that people are operating in.
Yeah. Okay. And that makes sense. So even as you talk about it, like, I think of, like, when you talk about covenant, like, there are two covenants basically, like in the Bible as well. Like, there is, and it's not stated explicitly like this, but it's known as this. Like, there's a parity treaty,
Mm-hmm.
which the parity treaty is like a covenant between equals.
Yeah.
That would be more so like you and me,
Marriage.
husband and wife.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the suzerain and vassal treaty, which is like a covenant agreement between like a higher power or a greater power and a lesser power. This is more so like coming in covenant with God and God creating a covenant with his people,
Mm-hmm.
because he's greater, we're lesser.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about those two type of covenants, when you get married, both are present. And when you go to the altar and you have husband and wife, like both of you are coming together in front of witnesses, most times in front of witnesses, and then both of you are coming together to make a covenant with God. So covenant together and then covenant with God.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to address this topic, especially when we're talking about like what marriage is, and marriage is a covenant primarily, because oftentimes when we get in relationships, especially in America, when the heat is on, when we're struggling, when we're going through conflict, marriage becomes transactional.
Yeah.
And now it's protecting minds from yours, my stuff from your things, my
Mm-hmm.
heart from your heart. And I think we miss the point of what covenant actually is.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about covenant, like, it's this binding agreement of like commitment and oaths. And so when you think of covenant, like, it's more relational than it is transactional.
Yeah.
And in America, like, I don't think many people understand just how the culture of America is influencing our marriages,
Yeah.
because we're in this capitalistic society, and it's like, I want the greatest thing, like I want the latest thing, and if this isn't making me happy, then I'm gonna look at the next greatest thing, even if I don't step outside of my marriage and actually cheat or whatever. Like, I'm still entertained on social media.
Yeah.
I'm still entertained with the person at work. I'm
Mhm.
entertained, and I'm going to put all my energy into my job, and I'm not going to give my marriage what it needs. And sometimes, and this is for dads and moms, like, as parents, when it's something going on between us, like, I think a contractual mindset says like, I'll give my energy to the kids because I don't want to work on this.
Mm.
And so I think it's important to understand that, because if we understand covenant right and we understand what a covenant is, then we can go into marriage and we can fulfill our marriage duties, and we can stop focusing on being transactional. Man, like, I'm literally just thinking of like so many conversations of people that I talk to, or even with clients, where like I hear the contractual language.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, when you hear parents say like, okay, these are my kids, these are my babies, and like
Mhm.
I know I married you, but my kids was in my life first.
Yeah.
You don't have then that's a contractual mindset because you're not coming into to agreement with it. And when you think of okay, if that's the case, if your kids are going to be higher than your spouse in your life, your marriage is out of order
Yeah.
and you're not going to be able to get some of the blessings that come with having a proper order in marriage.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I know kids is one. I mean, especially if you have like a blended family. We don't have the experience in that, but it's something that you hear a lot where it's like, okay, no, this is mine versus it being ours when you come together. Another big one where you see that is finances, where it's like, no, you keep your money over there. This is my money.
You
Like,
better be careful now.
we don't want to share accounts.
You
We're not
better be careful
joining.
because you
We're not
listen,
joining in that
you in a
way.
lot of people's business right now. You better be
I know,
careful.
but I'm gonna tell them anyway.
You right. And you might get canceled. So be okay with being canceled.
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
But the thing is, when we look at the first marriage in Genesis, Adam and Eve, it was the two becoming one flesh. And so that is how we identify what marriage is. It's a covenant and it's the two people becoming one. So if we're coming together, we're joining, that's in several areas. Spiritually, of course, as we are talking about this covenant that we make before God, but
Mhm.
that's in all aspects. And I feel like a lot of people, we're coming together, but we still want to be, you're still individual, right? Not uniformity, but unity. But we don't want to come together and lose kind of like that sense of independence, which is totally not the proper mindset. I feel like when you enter into marriage, it can't be this selfish thing of like it's about me and mine, and then you got you and yours. It's a we, it's us. Like we still do get it. Okay. Anyways, but seriously, it truly is the two becoming one flesh. And so when you operate in this oneness, I believe that should be all across the board in all areas in your marriage. And so God is a God of order. And when you're out of order, you're going to see disorder and dysfunction in the home and in
Okay.
the marriage.
Okay. So let me ask you this.
hmm
I'm going to put you on the spot.
Oh, Lord.
Don't trip. You did it to me. It's only right. We equals.
Okay.
Co-heirs.
Co-heirs
Yep. So
with Christ. Go ahead.
how do you, when you think of like just you as a wife, what areas are harder for you covenant wise? Like what areas do you feel there being a sense of like selfishness? Like this is mine, that's yours. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not saying like you
Mm.
have just like a contract mindset, but what's more difficult to let go of?
To let go of. We're almost 8 years in. I let it go already. What was kind of harder?
Well, you got two
I
kids. We know you did, but that's not what I'm talking about.
okay. Wow. Um, I feel like in the beginning it was harder because I had been single for a minute. And so coming into marriage, it was kind of hard where even my language, my vocabulary was more of like, oh, and I'm gonna do this and then over time I had to get used to the us and the we factor. But I can't think of anything in particular outside of that feeling of like, okay. I also think that it was more, I didn't understand. I knew it was a calling and it was a ministry, but I think I got caught up in work and like business. And so there were areas in the marriage that was neglected because I was out of order. And I realized that I think into year 2 of our marriage, where it's like, okay, you can do these things, have goals, obviously, and work and all the things, but this still has to be priority in my life. So I think maybe a sense of independence coming into it. Um, yeah, maybe submitting.
Okay, talk more.
I don't want to touch on it too much because we're going to get into roles, but
No, but just talk about why that was difficult for you.
it was difficult because it was just me for so long and I had my own independence. I never had to consider anyone in that way. And so difficult in a sense to the dying and the taking on this new new nature of marriage. So, yeah, that was a little bit difficult for me. early on, but right now, honestly, I can't think of anything that I feel like it's hard to let go of because, of course, you've kind of built that. We built that bond, that trust, our communication to where I don't feel like there's any particular area where I struggle in. One area that I desire to see more oneness in, I think within the last 2 years was more spiritually with us. We've individually been good spiritually with the
Mhm.
Lord, but like us engaging more in that together, which has grown significantly.
Okay, so you saying like spiritually, that's something that you wanted to get closer in together in oneness.
Like
W-
spiritual oneness.
Okay, so why is that important? Why was that important to you?
I think it was important because of all areas to come together in oneness. To me, I think it's the most important. Um, and I seen that, but there was just times where, of course, we run a business together, podcast, a ministry, love, and so there were times where it was like um, we weren't on the same page about certain things that we wanted to do. So I seen us like running into that a lot, and it was just like, okay, I want us to be in alignment and in agreement and like walk this thing out in unity.
Hmm.
And I think it started with just like the smaller things that the Lord convicted me of, like we are a united front. So like when someone sees you, they should see me. Not at all like we got to be glued to each other's hip. Don't take this the wrong way. We do have our own individual lives, social lives, all of that. But I'm talking about like at church, for instance, you would be at the front worshiping and I would be in the back, like with the kids or in the back sitting. And it's like, no, when you're up there worshiping, I need to be up there with you, you know? And the
Hmm.
same, like if you're praying for a couple or something like that, then okay, I need to join in and we come in together because there's power in that agreement and in the unity, especially in the covenant of marriage. And so that's what the Lord dealt with me about and convicted me about. And so just spiritually, I wanted us to kind of grow in that area.
Okay. So one thing that's important when we talk about covenant is just this idea of like remembering like your vows, because
Mm-hmm.
when you come together, like especially at weddings, like you have vows, whether they're traditional or you make up some, like there is this like these sayings that we have that we commit to. So I want you to talk a little bit more about that. Like, why is it important for us to be able to remember our vows? Because oftentimes when you think about it, a lot of couples say their vows and only revisit them maybe at at like their 10-year
Mm-hmm.
anniversary if they make it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Or
Like, why
even
is it important?
yearly.
Why is it important to do that?
In the context of covenant, when you make the covenant, you're standing there before the witnesses and the people and each other, and you're making this vow and this promise to your spouse. And so I think we hear it all the time. We keep the vision before you, keep the vision before you when it comes to your goals and things like that. Well, that's the vision of your marriage that you have committed to. And so I think it's important to keep that before you, and as well as in biblical days, biblical days in the stories where they shared about the covenant that they made was something that they kept before them so that they would not forget it. And so if you're vowing till death do us part for better or worse, and you have to live that thing out in a season of difficulty,
Hmm.
then it may be harder to actually abide by that if that's not something that's fresh in your mind. Like, oh yeah, I committed to this thing. Yet here we are facing the very thing I vowed and I promised to do.
Yeah.
And we see so many walk away in the midst of it. And I think part of that is not keeping it before them.
Okay. So you said something I want you to revisit. Why is it difficult in moments of hardship to stay with the vows?
I think it's more of kind of like a discomfort.
Okay.
Um,
Say more.
it's easy to become more selfish, especially if you don't have the perspective of you're here to serve your spouse and to consider them. Um, so I feel like if you don't have the proper mindset, I don't know if it's like a mental stamina to go through something of that magnitude. I mean,
Hmm.
couples face different things when it comes to difficulty, but um, it's just taking the easy route. And then you have to consider trauma and backgrounds and different things like that to their perspective of what that looks like. And again, it ties back to not understanding the covenant and the weight of what it is that you're saying when you say I do and the vows that you make. So if you understood that in the magnitude of it, I was reading about Abraham and the covenant that God made with him. And again, it was relational, like you mentioned, but he built an altar, which when we get married, it's typically at an altar, and there's a sacrifice that
Yeah.
happens, and there's a cutting of the animals in two. And when a covenant agreement would be made, they would walk back and forth between the animals that were cut in half, and they would basically say, "Let this be unto me, broken, cut in half, dead, as these animals are, if I don't keep my covenant." And so when you look at that, like, oh, God meant this thing to be forever.
Yeah.
It literally was supposed to be till death do us part. And if I don't keep my covenant, like, just think of the weight of that. If we lived our marriage like that, if I don't keep this covenant till death do us
Yeah.
part, then like, off with my head. Like, it sounds a little intense,
That
but
sounds harsh.
I
Very
mean,
harsh.
I'm just saying, like, that's when they made covenants, that's the severity of it
Yeah.
in that day. That's literally, let this be unto me as these animals if I don't keep this covenant.
Yeah. And with that, the idea was like, I'm yours and you are mine. Like that's covenant talk.
Yeah.
Like contract talk is this is mine and this is yours.
Yeah.
And so now it's like when you take your mind off of like covenant, like you're not seeing it relationally. Like you're not seeing it as okay, no, seriously, you're mine and
Mhm.
I'm yours. So that means that everything that I have is yours. Everything that you have is mine. Like my oaths, like my commitments that I make to you, like let this happen to me if I break that.
Yeah.
Like what happened to these animals, like let this happen to me if I break that. And so it was just a seriousness about the covenant. And nowadays it's not a seriousness about it. Like just think about how like now we focus on all the major issues that go on social media.
Mhm.
Like when we think about like okay, we want to be fascinated with comedians and nothing against comedians. I love them. I watch them myself. But when we're in times of like difficulty, that's my response to you. And instead of going to you, I find comfort in like social media or I find comfort in like doing things and not going to you. Like that's taking away the seriousness. Now I'm not saying like there are people like me, like prime example, me, like I need time to process when we're going through hardship. Like, honey, listen, bruh, the fire thick right now. Give me 20 minutes. Because if not, I'm gonna say something that's gonna really have you hot.
Mhm.
Because I know exactly what button to push. So give me a moment, let me reflect, and we can come back and have a great conversation because I'm my best when I get to process certain things.
Mhm.
But that's a different response than actually going to social media and numbing out what has
Mm.
happened because that's really what you're doing is you're avoiding what needs to happen for us to remain in this covenant. And so even when we say vows like till death do us part through sickness and in health, like those are cute when you say your vows.
Yeah, real cute.
You know what I'm saying? Like it
Mhm.
sound good in front of everybody and legit in that moment mean it.
Yeah.
But in times of stress and pressure when you're not able to be um when you're not in that moment allowed to be vulnerable, some spouses don't allow their partners to be vulnerable. Like it makes it very difficult. And you
Yeah.
mentioned just like your background, you mentioned like the traumas that you go through. Like all of that stuff shows up in moments of difficulty because your body only knows like your body's primary response is how to survive. So if I'm in a moment where it's very difficult and like this conversation is like overwhelming me, like whether I'm like getting super sad or I'm getting super heated. In that moment, my body is saying like alert, danger, I need to get to safety.
Mhm.
Some people will not literally walk away from the conversation, but they'll check out.
Yeah.
That's their body's way of dealing with the pressure. Some people will get super like loud and so in those moments, your body's trained for survival. Like just how your body's wired, is trained for survival. And it's hard to logically think in those moments, which is why, like, um, when you're having conflict, you have to be able to deal with what's preventing you from having those difficult conflicts.
Yeah.
Like, when we're talking, like, do I feel myself getting anxious? Like, do I feel myself starting to get upset? You know what I'm saying? Like, can I even notice that? Because if I can't, these conversations are going to go south every time. And what happens to a lot of couples, especially as we talk about covenant, is they lose the covenant because it's hard to stay in those difficult moments or work through them. And what me and you have learned just over the last, I want to say, couple years, is that the longer we stall from actually having the conversation, that shifts the perspective through which we see each other. It almost like muddies the lens.
Mm.
And through that, now I'm starting to think of you a certain way.
Yeah.
So
That's
now
good.
I don't see you as like my spouse that I married, you know what I'm saying? Like in the honeymoon stage, now I see you as my enemy.
Mm.
And because I see you as my enemy, now I'm talking to you and treating you like I got a vendetta against you. And so if that's the case, our perspective is going to be tainted towards each other, and we're going to become transactional rather than relational. And so I want to pitch it back to you, because from a woman's perspective, what do you feel can make covenant difficult?
That's a really broad question.
I Okay, so here's
Help
something
me
that
out.
um you'll continue to learn about me, because as you get married, you learn new things about your spouse.
Thanks. Yes, I'm still learning.
When I'm in therapy, when I'm doing therapy with clients, I like to ask very vague questions
Hmm.
because I want to see where their mind goes with it. So in this moment, I wanted to ask a vague question just to see where you would go. What makes it difficult as a woman to stay in covenant? Not maybe just for you, but what you've seen with other people.
What makes it difficult to stay in covenant?
Yeah, we can go with that one.
Did I say it different?
No, it's cool. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Um,
I want your mind to go.
yeah. What makes it difficult to stay in covenant? Where my mind goes is what would cause you to step out of it, and for that I would think there's a lack within the covenant, and so let's say there's a need of yours that's not being met to your standard, or even going into it with false expectations into marriage, or having this expectation that your spouse doesn't know about. Like, there's a lot of times where women will have this idea in their head of how they want their spouse to be, or how they expect them to be, or things they want them to do, but they don't ever say them out loud and like open their mouth. And I could see that cause conflict or difficulty within the covenant. But whenever I see it being difficult to stay within the covenant, is typically because there is a lack that they're feeling,
Hmm.
and they go elsewhere basically to find it. But the thing about covenant, as with our vows, it's not contingent upon your spouse loving you the way that you want, or it's not contingent on them being selfless, or it's not contingent on them submitting to you, or it's not contingent on those things with how you show up in the marriage when you say, for better or worse, till death do us part. You know what comes to mind is
Talk about it.
no, the movie Diary of a Mad Black Woman comes to mind.
Okay.
And her husband was really bad to her. Like,
Keep it cultural.
I think it like really tainted his whole character. Like, if he ever wanted to play in another movie, like, we just see him as this bad guy.
You see him as a bad guy.
Okay,
No
fine.
matter,
I
no
see him as
matter, no
okay.
matter.
It ain't just me. But anyways,
You saying you'll see him in another movie as a good husband, and he'll still be a bad husband to you.
yeah, I did
Okay.
say that. Okay,
Okay.
that's me.
All right.
But the point I'm trying to make is that during that time, like, he was controlling and manipulative and just all these things. And he was very, obviously he was wealthy, but for her, when she had the opportunity to go back,
Mhm.
because he got sick and, then he needed help. And yeah, she went in. She went in on him. And when you think of the moment where you're keeping score, you're keeping record of wrong, if you can get revenge, if you could treat them the way they treated you, all of that I feel like causes friction and difficulty um, within keeping your covenant,
Yeah.
because it then becomes more about I and how I was feeling or how I was treated, and you're not keeping again that before you. Like this is covenant. This is what you vow before God. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So
Yeah. And I'm thinking like the phrase like I am yours. I think a lot of people don't take that serious, and this is what I mean by that. Like when when we hear about, let's just say we hear about somebody cheating on their spouse. Let's just take that.
mhm.
Terrible situation. And I don't think that should ever happen because that strips away one of the foundational pillars of your relationship, which is trust.
Mhm.
And oftentimes, especially when we hear about it from somebody like somebody sharing with you their story, like, oh, like he cheated. Immediately that the cheating spouse is the bad spouse.
Yeah.
But oftentimes we don't look at our relationship as something that like how I affect you and how you affect me.
The part you play in it. Yeah.
And so that's very hard because it's hard to take ownership in that. And I'm not saying like, okay, like they cheated because you cheated. But a lot of people don't look at how they show up in the relationship and how it affects the other partner. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, like I was talking to somebody on the phone. Um, I was talking to somebody on the phone probably a couple weeks ago, and they were sharing how like they've been in a relationship for years. You know what I'm saying? And the last year of the relationship, they stepped out on their partner. You know what I'm saying? Like, but it was like 10 plus years of just like being mistreated, 10 plus years of being talked about, like verbally abused, you know what I'm saying? Like things like that. And so it's like, okay, if you take 10 years of that to the chin, it's like, okay, like that makes it easier to step out because if you're doing that and you get attention from somebody else, of course that attention makes you feel this false sense of covenant.
Mm.
And so I'm saying that to say like in relationships, people need to look how they impact the relationship. It's not just the fact that like your minds, meaning like you're committed to me, like you make sure you love me the right way, you make sure you talk to me right, you make sure you provide, or you make sure you clean the kitchen or deal with the kids. It's no, how can I show up? How can I love you? How can I make you feel as if like we are actually one? Like, how can I make you feel that you're not the only person in the relationship putting in effort?
Yeah.
And so when we take the mindset of like, okay, like your behavior is influenced by my behavior and taking ownership, now we say like, okay, we like me in this relationship, like I play a major part. And so I'm going to make sure that I show up in this relationship that in a way that makes you your best self. Because if I'm showing up in this relationship and I want to like prioritize you before me, naturally that might make you feel good about me and it'll make you feel good about wanting to show up for me. And so now it's helping each other show up in this relationship. And so now because the focus is relational and I'm focusing on like providing for you what you need to be your best version of yourself in this relationship, in this life, because you're my responsibility, like you're my commitment, like just like in the like back in the ancient times, in the Old Testament biblical days when they would make a covenant, like the basically they would have like all these like, stipulations of like what needs to take place. And so they would literally like read to each party would read their agreements to their other parties within the relationship in the groups
Hmm.
like often because they need to know what's at stake if like this goes bad or
You don't keep up your end of the
you know
covenant.
what I'm saying. So they were constantly aware of the blessing. So like for example in like a vassal and suzerain treaty, like the greater power would like provide protection, food. They would give them their own land. You know what I'm saying? And the lesser power, that was their blessing. You know what I'm saying? And the greater power, like the blessing from the lower power is like, okay, like now we have you as an ally. Now we have um like your territory that we can use when we need military, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm.
and so there was benefits and curses, like blessings and
Blessing and
curses,
cursing, yeah.
you know what I'm saying, when it came to that. And so they were aware of both. And so we're not always aware of the blessings and cursings that are in our relationship. Like what happens when I step out of my marriage? Like, okay, like that affects my health. That affects me mentally. Like I've
Mhm.
given part of myself to somebody that now like is starting to affect my body physically. Like, and these are just tangibles,
Yeah.
but we're not even talking about, okay, like your reputation of commitment is tainted, especially when it gets out to the public. Like you're damaging your kids. Like, so those are curses.
Kids,
Like,
yeah.
but when you talk about blessings, like there's this happiness, there's this peace, and even statistically, like married couples make more than individuals. You know what I'm saying? Like their life is lived longer. So we talk about these blessings, like we're not aware of the blessings and curses when we're transactional
Yeah.
and when we're contractual. And so when we have this mindset of like covenant relationship, and I like because we was talking to Maya behind the scenes, and Maya was talking about how um for those of you who don't know who Maya is, she the one behind the camera, you know, our podcast ones and twos. Um and she was saying how like in her marriage she like recites, you know what I'm saying, like often their vows.
Yeah.
And so they would do in the old times the same thing because now it's fresh and we don't have to guess, we don't have to wonder like, okay, till death do us when.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? We know till death do us part. And so now we're working to make sure that's the stipulation and that's like the agreement. So how do we do that? Versus saying like when I'm not happy and you're not making me happy, I'm gonna go somewhere else.
Right.
You know? So yeah, just like when you think about covenant, like it's just such a big topic and a lot of couples don't understand what marriage is for. And so they get married for the wrong reasons. Like they
Mm.
get married because it's financial stability. They get married because or stay married because of the kids
Yeah.
and not realizing
So
like
many are
their
surviving.
relationship with each other is affecting how they show up with their kids or
Mm-hmm.
affecting the growth trajectory of their kids because now they see marriage a certain way. They see how you handle conflict a certain way.
Yeah. It's all a huge part of that. So I think that we are ready for the Marriage in Motion challenge.
Ooh, talk to me
You ready?
nicely.
Before we bring this to a close, because I know this one's getting lengthy. So the Marriage in Motion challenge for this week, you kind of hinted to it a few times actually, but
What is the marriage in motion for those who just tuning in to us?
oh, okay. So with each episode, we want to give you guys like practical, tangible steps that you can apply to move your marriage forward. And so these are not just for you to hear. We consume a ton of content nowadays, but
Yeah.
we want you to actually live this thing out. And in order to do that, we want to give you something practical that will help your marriage thrive. And as you're doing these challenges that we're giving you every week, you will build that momentum to where you will see the growth and the change, and you will actually be thriving in your marriage, which is the mission here for We Still Do.
Yes.
So we want you to revisit your vows, set aside time to read them or even write them down. If you have your wedding video, you can watch it back. If you can't find them, it's been so long, you don't even remember what you said. Write down and revisit the traditional vows. And then you
Yeah.
can discuss together what those vows mean to you now and how have they been lived out in your marriage. So revisit the vows. What do they mean to you now versus the day that you said it? And then how are you living them out? And what that looks like. So I think it's a good one because we talked about these vows and how they're such a huge part of the covenant and the promises that you are making before your spouse. But a lot of the times we don't remember that, especially if you wrote your own. I can't quote you word for word what I said in my vows. So, but the traditional ones I know. So revisit those and make sure you guys take time to discuss that. How have we lived out those vows and what does it look like?
Yes. And so as we close, we just want you to remember that your marriage can thrive beyond the altar.
Yes, it can.
It doesn't just have to be at the altar. We're good, but your marriage can actually thrive after the altar and not just survive. So if you like this episode, like, comment, subscribe, and share with somebody who you feel may need to know exactly what covenant is and why it's important. Until next time, peace.
Forever and always, gonna love you and always. No doubt you're my blessing. Ain't no second guessing. No one can separate. We find a good thing. Even after the altar, it's marriage in motion.